think this should work. I'm not in my normal office, so I don't have several monitors today. Can you guys see this okay?
Can you repeat that?
Is it sharing? Oh, it says we need permission to share your screen. Do you have it up by chance, Jay?
Yeah, I can share my screen if you want.
Okay, yeah, it's not letting me do it.
Okay, give me a sec.
Okay.
All right, let me know when it's up.
Perfect. That's me. Yeah, so this is just basically what I kind of went over before. The first picture is actually, I had a huge diamond necklace that was worth about $300,000 on when I was at Blue Nile. And then at Expedia, this is just a photo of an event that I was at in London with the rest of my team who was based out of there. And then the photo from Streamline is I was actually in Wausau, Wisconsin when I was at Streamline meeting with the Foot Locker team. And interestingly enough, several of them are on my team now at LT Partners. I think we have 5 people that are based out of Wausau, Wisconsin from the time that I was there. And then once I started at LT Partners, I started getting pretty involved in the industry. So in 2019, I became a MarTech Record expert panelist. MarTech Record is just an industry organization that was founded by a friend of mine who, has been in the affiliate industry on the platform side for quite some time. And then 2 years ago, I joined the PMA as a board member. It's a nonprofit organization in our industry, basically advocating for the industry and compliance for the most part. And then last year, I was awarded Top 50 with Performance In, which is also another industry organization that actually it's peer-based. So somebody in the industry has to nominate you. So I was actually, the most excited about that because it's not an award you can, nominate yourself for or spend money to get. Somebody else has to kind of vouch for you.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to share a little bit about why I started LT Partners. I think there are a lot of different paths that entrepreneurs have. One of the things that I, sometimes think to myself is, gosh, I wish I would have done this a long time ago. But I feel like all of my experience kind of leading up to starting LT Partners really helped shape what I created. And I think to go back to that quote, Jay, that you put on the first slide, I don't think that I would have created the same value and been as successful if I would have started it earlier in my career, because I learned different things from all of the different experiences that I had that really shape, what LT Partners is and how we kind of go to market. And, I built the company because being on the brand side first, and then also being at another agency really helped me see all of the great things.
I think your mic is muted.
Yeah, I just sent that message. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When did it cut off?
I think it was when you mentioned that you wouldn't have been able to create the impact or create value if you didn't have the prior experience.
Okay, it just muted me again, and it's giving me a message that somebody's muting me. So I'll keep an eye on it. And
Okay.
second.
Yeah,
But
meanwhile, I'll change the settings.
okay. Yeah, but so just the different experiences that I had at different companies, both on the brand side, working with agencies and then at another agency, I really got to see, some of the great things that agencies can do, but I also saw and heard from some of my colleagues some of the pain points that they had with agencies. So when I started at LT Partners, I just wanted to create a solution that was a little bit more consultative in nature. Um, our goal is to be more strategic, to be a strategic partner for our clients, and to be really transparent and open about everything that we're doing. There are so many companies out there that say like, "Oh, I can't tell you all of those details. It's kind of like our secret sauce." And I just really don't believe in that. I feel like, if we're going to be a partner to our clients, we need to be open and honest and sharing everything that we know, because ultimately that is what helps their business. And it's not about protecting our business, it's about helping our clients' business. And so I just genuinely feel that long term, that will facilitate more growth for us. And obviously, we're all about driving results. That's really all that matters at the end of the day for any agency is being effective and successful in driving revenue. And then I just thought it would be fun to share a few of my favorite entrepreneurs, just in case any of you guys want to follow them on LinkedIn or look into them further. Jay, I don't know if you can share this deck out to the group, but the links here go to like
Yep.
their Wikipedia pages. And I don't know
Mhm.
how familiar everybody is with these people. They're pretty well known
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I saw Ariana Huffington actually speak at a conference probably 10 years ago, and I just fell in love with her. I just think I think the similarities between all four of these people are just their transparency and their authenticity. Um, and they're just really very interested in helping other people, which I, really look up to and aspire to do. I think they've taken their success in business and made it into something more meaningful. And that's why I think they're some of my favorites out there.
Yep, for sure. I think at least everyone will know about Mark Cuban.
Yes.
Right.
And then these are a couple of my favorite books. I kind of tell people I'm not a book nerd. I'm a numbers nerd. Like I love data and I love thinking about how to communicate data, and I just don't really spend a lot of time reading. And I think it's kind of like a weird thing for an entrepreneur to say, because I feel like entrepreneurs have to love reading. It's kind of one of those things where every entrepreneur says like, these are my favorite books. I don't do a lot of reading, but I do a little bit. And these two books for me have been sort of my staples. The Four Agreements is definitely not a business book by any means, but it's just sort of a mantra of how to operate. And I think that although it's not specific to business, you can really apply a lot of the principles to business. And I think for me, that's kind of how I strive to accomplish success, is by applying these principles to what we do every day. And then The Hard Thing About Hard Things is written by Ben Horowitz. He's a very, famous sort of celebrity CEO, I would say maybe. But the thing that I love about his book is he starts every chapter with a quote from a rap song. And he's just really like, I feel like he's not polished and professional in the book per se. He's just real and he tells it how it is. And he has so many different experiences that really he can point to show sort of the principle that he's trying to communicate that needs to be um, implemented by people who are entrepreneurs. But I just love this quote in here at the end of the day. Like, what it boils down to is successful entrepreneurs say they just didn't quit.
I was reading something similar the other day as well, and it is so what the quote said was that a person interviewed, I think, around 20 to 30 CEOs, and his summary was like went something like this, where he said that when I asked unsuccessful CEOs how they did it, they went, "Oh, I used this strategy, I did this, I did that." And whenever he asked a successful CEO or a founder, how did he do it, he or she did it, then the answer was almost always that they didn't quit. So, yeah,
Yeah.
this really makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think resilience and persistence is, two of the biggest characteristics that I see of successful CEOs as well.
Hmm.
And then I just put, some of the keys to success that I think of. I think, what I've seen, at least in my company, is really the reputation is what has brought us a lot of our business. All of our clients have come from referrals. And so I started the company in September of 2018. I told my husband, I was like, if I can get 3 clients by the end of the first year, then I'll keep doing this and that will be successful. And I won't need to go get a job at another company. And because of the fact, how I had worked my whole career and the reputation that I built, I had 3 clients signed on within 61 days. So, really, just a couple of months. And when Steve joined the company a little over 2 years ago now, a very similar thing happened where, because of the way that he had worked through his whole career, with the level of integrity and, the ethics that we both come to the table with, and our transparency and communication, a lot of people that he had worked with previously started sending clients to us as well. So I just feel like no matter what your path is, like as long as you always operate with that in mind of like showing up, doing your best work, and being honest with people, if you end up going down the entrepreneurship path down the road, that reputation will help you, and it will help you because people trust you and they want to send business to you or give you business in some cases. And then differentiating, I think there's probably over 60 agencies in the affiliate space specifically. Um, I think at the end of the day, we're all running affiliate programs. We're all kind of doing the same thing. It's more about the methodology and the approach and the strategy. And to have 60 different strategies is really difficult. I think I've seen a lot of agencies kind of have a similar approach, sort of this playbook of how they run things. Um, and that's why when I created this company, I wanted to create something really different because I saw the pain points with that approach. So I think it takes a little bit of bravery to sort of say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it in a really different way than everybody else has. But I think that's a big part of what has driven our success as well. And then communication, I mentioned it earlier, but just tapping into that network and communicating that differentiation is super important. Um, I think if you have a great reputation and you find a way to differentiate yourself, but you don't know how to share it with everyone, uh, you still won't be successful. And it really boils down to marketing. Like that's what marketing is communicating what you're doing and why it's special at scale. And then I think failing is super important as well. Like we've made several mistakes already, and we learn from it all the time. And I do think like some of what I mentioned earlier about feeling like, oh, I wish I would have started this company earlier. Some of what I saw in the past in my previous experiences was failure of other people, of myself. I made mistakes a lot in my career, and I feel like I've learned a lot through that experience. Um, I just think you always have to fail because if you're not failing, it means you're not really pushing yourself that hard. I grew up skiing, and that's what my dad always said. Like if we were skiing all day long and I never failed, my dad would be like, "Oh, you didn't try hard enough run then. So I kind of think about it that way. And then just continuing to evolve, like, you can't just create your differentiation, have it sit there and do that forever. You have to continue to learn new things, find other ways of doing things, innovate, and that'll keep you relevant and fresh and continue the growth. And then I just put this together because I just think it's super ironic. Like, we work in a partnerships industry where we're trying to get publishers and partners to, drive traffic to our clients' websites. But I also think that, working in this industry, I think I've really realized the importance of partnerships and your network, your personal partnerships, and how that can help you grow in your career. So building that network, being engaged, being proactive about, finding uh, finding good connections that you can keep for your career is really important. Um, the people on this slide are all people that, I've met over the course of the last 15 years of my career, and I've stayed in touch with them, even though I don't work with many of them anymore. I keep in touch, and that's part of what has helped both, drive success for the business from a client acquisition standpoint, but also drive, people to come work at my company. And the two people on the bottom and then Julia on the middle right are all people that work at LT Partners who I would never have met and been able to hire unless I had a network that kind of sent them to me. So it's not just important for the success of your incoming revenue. It's also important for the success of like having great people on your team. And then these are just 5 tips. I think a lot of CEOs kind of have some standard kind of tips. One of mine is kind of standard, and I've said it already a lot, but your network is really everything. I think that's something that a lot of CEOs will say as well. The other 4 are a little bit out of the box, I think. I just think gratitude really goes a long way. I have seen it both on, people on my team side, like just telling them, that I appreciate their hard work. Also on the client side, just, telling them how much we really enjoy working with them and supporting their business. But also I do a lot of gift giving. I think that kind of is my way of communicating gratitude. And I feel like it really resonates and it makes people feel excited about the partnership. I also say this a lot with my team, that difficult conversations are necessary. I grew up playing volleyball, and when I've had coaches who don't really give me a lot of feedback, I end up not really getting better. And so when I've had coaches who really pushed me hard and give me a lot of feedback all the time, that's when I really grew a lot and improved my skills and was more successful on the court. So I think about that in work as well, is that if I'm constantly giving feedback, it means it might be uncomfortable in the moment, but people are ultimately going to get better in their careers. They're going to get promoted, and they're going to be happier at the end of the day. Killing it doesn't always mean good things go your way. I think Jay probably has seen this over the course of his internship, but there are times, it's not frequent, but there are times when, we do everything right for a client and their business is booming and everything's amazing, and they end up, deciding to go a different path. Sometimes there's things outside of your control. And I think that when that happens, it's just really important to take the time to understand why something happened. But then if there's really nothing that you could have done better, to just move on and not let it, not, stew on it, not let it get to you, and just focus on the things that you can control and work toward that. And then fear-based decisions suck. That's something that, going through COVID, having a company through COVID in the very beginning, everybody was so scared of what was going to happen. And we didn't really know exactly what to say or what to do, how to respond. And I think especially having kind of lived as a company through that, it really helped me understand that there's no value in being scared. There's no value in making a decision out of fear or worrying about things. It's really, really hard to do. I still worry about things, obviously, but really there is no benefit to anyone, including yourself, by focusing on those challenging things that you really can't control and making decisions based on that. I think that's all I put together, right, Jay? I know Jay said this is normally a more conversational thing, so I just thought it might be helpful to give a little bit of a deeper background on myself and some of the things that I've seen, but happy to like chat with you guys more and answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, right. Um, so that was the goal. Just give a little bit of background on your experience and almost every aspect of your entrepreneurship, and then we can just have folks ask questions. So I guess we'll start with that. You can raise your hand or put your question in the chat box. Um, yeah, and if you can't unmute yourself, then let me know. I'll unshare the screen. And also let me know if the chat is not available because that happens a lot. Okay, this is a perspective-based question. So another Jay, he's my junior. He asks how to know when an idea is a good idea.
That's a good question. I'm a pretty firm believer in a couple of things. One, going with your gut, and two, validating with people that you trust. So some of the people that I put in the deck, the photos, are people that I've met throughout my careers that were very successful themselves, who I really respect. It's not a formal mentorship that I have with them, but I know that, and I call those people on a regular basis. I text them, I ask them questions all the time. So if I ever have an idea that I'm not 100% sure about, I will run it by those people and see what their feedback is. And sometimes they tell me no and I do it anyway. And then sometimes it's successful and I'm excited, and sometimes I fail and then I learn that I should have listened to those people. Um, so I think it's a combination of the feeling that you have, validating it with people that you know and trust and respect. There's definitely like a lot of data that you can gather around ideas as well. I decided about a year and a half ago to start this other company that I was super excited about. And I ended up doing, it was more of like a tech platform. And I ended up doing this kind of startup incubator program that was kind of like Y Combinator, but it was for people who are moonlighting, like they have a full-time job and they don't have time to do a YC intensive program. And that experience kind of gave me the playbook for tech platforms. And part of that playbook includes market research, understanding the total addressable market for your company. So there's definitely data out there where if you say like, I have this idea for a technology platform, you need to understand how big is the potential revenue opportunity on a, if it's a US business or a global business, then you can usually find some data to validate your idea. And then understanding like what share of that total potential market you think you can make up. That's another more data-driven way to go about it. But really for me, with a service-based company, a lot of it was my experience leading me to believe that this was a good idea. And then again, validating it with the people that I know and trust.
Mhm. Jay, I hope that clears your question. Um, and I think someone raised their hand. Okay, so Jay has another question. So, what is needed to get started? Okay.
uh, Courage. I think it depends on the company, right? For a very long time, I have always felt like I wanted to start a company. And when I was younger, I thought, well, I can't take the risk. I need to eat. Like I need to be able to pay for things. I didn't come from a family that, supported me financially early on in my career. My family supported me to get through college, and then it was up to me to support myself. So I was always kind of scared to take the leap when I was younger because I didn't know if I would make enough money. And some of the ideas that I had for companies required investment too, like purchasing assets. And I think the reason that this company and this idea worked for me is because I had kind of done it before and I saw what it took and I saw that it could be bootstrapped essentially. And I was at a point in my career and, I'm married, my husband had run his company. I felt like it was a good time to take a calculated risk. So I think honestly, it is about the mentality more than specific things that you need. I think you can always find the things that you need if you have the mentality to make it happen.
All right. So, I think someone 21, I think Chris, right? Chris, you can go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yeah, there's a bit of noise, but go ahead.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to ask, how have your priorities changed since you began, from when you started?
I think I feel like they kind of change on a weekly basis, to be honest. We're growing so fast that uh, what I was worried about or wanted to focus on early on was getting clients, delivering results. Now I think we're a team of over 30 people, and for me, my focus has really definitely I want to make sure that we continue to deliver on our differentiation. But for me, today, I would say I'm much more focused on the team, and I really want to make sure that the team is happy, that they feel like this is a supportive environment where they can be successful and also be happy with being here long term. Agencies have a reputation for burnout. Everybody works super hard. You have, if you're working on 6 different client accounts, you essentially have 6 different bosses, and some of them are going to be really nice, and some of them are going to be total assholes. And you just have to kind of like figure out how to deal with that, how to deal with constant change. I think it's very, very challenging work. And so my focus is really trying to help support our team on how to get through what's a very like stressful work environment inherently with ease, and how to stay calm and relaxed and kind of not let it kind of get to you. You kind of have to build a little bit of a thick skin to to be resilient in the type of work that we do. So that I would say that's the biggest shift. But like I said, because of the fact that we have been, I think, historically bringing on a new client like 2 every month at a minimum. We're constantly hiring people. So on a weekly basis, my focus and priorities kind of has to be agile and change as things happen. And we just have to kind of take the information that we have every day and every week and shift our priorities based on that.
Mhm. All right. So there's a question from Yogesh. He asks how to deal with problems which seem impossible to solve. More of an open-ended question, but yeah.
I laugh because just specifically on the work that Jay does on the data and analytics side, I do not know how to do what Jay does, right? I do not know how to, like Steve, our general manager, has a more robust background in the tactics of how to do what Jay does. I understand data and strategy more. So, Jay will build something and Steve will show it to me, and I'll be like, well, what if we do this? Like, could we do this? And so I'm constantly coming up with the impossibilities rather than solving them myself. I just like to really challenge the team to get creative and think outside the box and come up with solutions. I honestly, throughout my whole career, I'm always coming up with those ideas and problems and trying to figure out ways to solve them. And I just ask a lot of questions. I feel like when you have a problem that you think is impossible, asking a lot of questions helps you identify potential areas. And so Steve will show me something and he'll be like, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, but could we do it this way? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And then I asked, like, well, if this data lives over here and we have this connecting data point over here, like, couldn't we marry them? And I'm like, just talking about it in theory. And he's like, oh, actually, I think we could do that. And so that would be my suggestion, is just ask a lot of questions. And I feel like eventually you'll come up with a solution.
Yep, for sure. And that has worked. So yeah.
It
All right.
sometimes makes a lot of work, but
Hmm.
I think
Yep.
that's how you come up with cool things.
Yep. All right. We have another question from Hers. She asks, okay, so this is interesting. Do you have any backup?
No. I think that kind of goes back to the CEO mantra of I just didn't quit, because if you're thinking about your backup, then I think something's wrong.
Mhm.
I think my decision-making process, like I said, is always based on the information that I have today. So if, something crazy happened and, the company couldn't survive or be successful, I would take the information that I had in that moment and figure out what I would do with it. I just think, like, I have a pretty good background. I have a great reputation. I know something will be there. I know something good will happen. I just have faith in that. And that's my backup, I guess, is just knowing that something will arrive. I don't have a plan for what I would do.
Yeah. I'm not sure which story is this, but I think I remember a story where, and I'm not sure if this is a real story or just something that's fictional, but there was a person took an army that was not really gonna win the war because of the number of people they had in the army. Um, and what he basically did was, when they landed on the shore of the other continent where they were gonna fight, once everyone took off on the shore, the military general, just asked few of the folks to go back there and then burn all the boats. So he made sure that there was no backup for them to go back to, and so all the people in the army knew that there's no backup and they really need to win this, or all they're all gonna die. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you have a backup, you're not gonna work hard enough. So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So we have a question from Jimmy. He asks, how do you know if your first employees are good enough? And how do you know how do you choose your first employees? Okay.
Yeah, I think finding the right people on the team is incredibly difficult. Again, I go with my gut and talk to people that I trust. My first employee was Molly O'Byrne. She's still at the company. She's our head of operations now. She was introduced to me by somebody that I had worked with in the industry. And this person that introduced her to me just knew me really well, knew how I work, knew kind of the level of expectations that I have. And knew Molly really well and felt like it was just a really good match. And he was right. And I think I talked to Molly once and I was like, I know I want to hire her. It was more a matter of, did she want to take the risk of going, she was at eBay before she joined my company. And, does she want to just leave eBay and all of the security that is at eBay to come be my first employee when, I had been running the company for 6 months. It wasn't like I had this huge, history of success for her to really have faith and believe in. But when I think we talked a couple more times and she really believed in our differentiation and what we were doing. And I think she also had faith in the person that had referred her to me and trusted that they knew and believed that I would be successful with this. So it worked for her and it obviously worked great for me. There's, I would say like my first probably 10 employees were all referrals. Steve was introduced to me from a mutual friend that we have at Impact, which is a tracking platform that we use for a lot of our clients. And again, like Henry knew Steve and I both very well. And I reached out to Henry and I was like, I need a general manager. I had interviewed a couple of other people who were definitely more kind of on the sales side. A lot of their career was in business development. When I met Steve, he's not a big talker. So I kind of like have to pull things out of him. And everything that he said, I could tell was just really honest. And there was, he wasn't the type of person to try to make me believe something that wasn't true about him. So I think, again, I just could sense that. And I knew that in my gut about him because through my career, I've spent my whole, 20 years working with people and reading people and understanding how they operate. So when I talk to people, I can kind of tell if they're, not, if they're guarded or they're keeping something or they're not being real. And Steve is just such a real, straightforward, honest guy. And I could tell that that was the case. So I think that role in particular was very difficult for me to hire for. And again, like I had, Steve came from Rise Interactive, that was a 250 person agency, and he ran a lot of the agency, a lot of different aspects of it. Before he came to LT Partners, he was running the video games division of Redbox, like kind of a big deal. So for him to leave and join, my company as the 6th employee was a big leap. But I really truly believe that it's about, trusting other people in your network with the decisions that you make. And then at scale, it's a combination of that, because we still get a lot of our teammates through referrals, but then leveraging some other things that have been successful for us. Like at my last agency, I hired a lot of people straight out of the University of Washington, the school that I went to. The business school is very difficult to get into. And I have found that when I hire people out of that business school, they're very bright. They're very, they pick things up and they can build strategy very quickly, but they also haven't done what we do at a different company the wrong way. So they kind of adopt our approach very quickly. So I've continued to hire that way because it's been successful in the past. So I just think it's all about, and to be honest, like we've had some employees who have not been great. And then we have to figure out like, why did that happen? How can we change our approach to prevent us from going through that experience again? Because it's not fun for them either if it's not a good fit. So I think it's a combination of tapping into your network, doing what seems to work well over and over again, and then figuring out what isn't working well and changing that.
Makes sense. All right, we have a few more questions from Jay again. So how do you analyze decisions to map out the best route for your company?
So when Steve joined, like I said, we were 6 people. He started on March 30th, 2020, which I don't know exactly when kind of lockdown happened in India, but for us, it happened like right around March 30th, 2020, and everybody was working remote. We didn't, know what was going to happen. So he started, well, I was talking to him starting in January when everything was amazing and we were growing so fast. And like, I built the dream. And then the day he started, we got on a call and I was like, wow, like all this stuff is happening. What do we do? And I was like, welcome to day one. But I think, like I said earlier, it's all about making decisions based on the information that you have at the time. So we sat down together and identified like what we knew about our current clients, what we know about the macro, things that are happening, and the decisions that we could make based on all of that. So in the beginning, because everybody was so scared, we brought on some clients that we probably, we wouldn't bring them on today, but we did it based on the information that we had at the time. And so we, brought on clients that were smaller, that didn't have as big of budgets. We probably lost money on some of them because the work that we had to put into it was more than what they were paying us. And again, that's just a failure that, we had to learn from, but we did it intentionally based on the information that we had at the time. So, I don't think you can look back and go, oh, I wish I would have not done that. I think we learned a lot from doing that. Today, when we talk to a client where we're like, they're a little smaller than we want, like they don't necessarily have the budget, we think back to 2 years ago and we say, no, we're not going to do that again. Like we know how that ends up. So it's not always about making the right decision. I think like you make the decision that you need to make based on the information that you have at the time. And then if it doesn't work out, then you learn from it and hopefully don't do it again. What we've started to do since then is every 6 months, we have a leadership offsite. We just had one last week on Monday and Tuesday. And the first one, it was just Steve and I. He came to Seattle, where I am right now and I normally live, but I've not been living here for a while. He came here and we sat down for 2 days and went through the agenda that we had built out, which includes like a SWOT analysis. We take a step back. We think about like our position. We talk about the potential areas of growth for us. Like, do we want to invest into different channels? How do we want to scale? We look at our referral sources, like who's, sending us a lot of business, where there's good success with the business that's being sent. How do we want to invest into that? So I think forcing yourself to have the time to make the strategic decisions that you need to make for your company is imperative. We did it the next time I went to Chicago. Then everybody, Molly and Ashley joined us for the session that we had down in Puerto Vallarta. And then last week we all went to Houston. So we always go where somebody lives, just because it's helpful for us to have their resources wherever we go. And as much as we possibly can, we don't look at our emails. We're not like handling business during the time that we're there, so that we can take a step back and focus and think more strategically about the areas of growth for the business. And we lay out like, where do we need to hire? What does our org chart look like for the next 6 months? And then one of the really important aspects of these offsites is looking back at our previous offsite agenda, looking at the decisions that we made, looking at the action items that we decided upon, and reflecting to see, did we do all of the things we said we were going to do? If not, why not? If so, did they work? And really being intentional about understanding, and holding ourselves accountable to the decisions that we've made.
Yep, for sure. And Jay has another follow-up question, but I think you partially answered it. So he says, how do you plan for the future? And what is your vision?
these offsites are a big part of how we plan for the future. I think the vision for the company, for me from day one, has always been, I really have seen that companies kind of love the boutique approach that smaller agencies can bring because, excuse me, they're able to tap into people like Steve and myself, right? Like we hear that feedback on a regular basis from our clients. They love the fact that they can text me. Like I have my cell in my signature. It's in the deck that I sent to you guys. Like I want people to know that I'm accessible. And that's why they like the boutique approach. I believe that you can scale the boutique approach, and that's really what I want to prove out. I think that there's inherently problems that happen when you scale an agency. The people at the top cannot be accessible for 100 people or 200 or 2,000 people, right? But if you build the team out in the right way, everybody will have access to somebody that can make as big of an impact on their business as Steve or I can. And so that's my dream of what I want to show, is that you can be consultative, you can be strategic, you can be transparent at scale. And so that vision is kind of what we always think about when we're thinking about how to grow this company. It's not an easy vision because there's not a lot of other companies that I've seen do it, but I do believe it can be done. Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, and that has worked quite well for us. Yeah. Right, and Chris has another question. Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently when you first started out?
I don't think so. I mean, there's definitely certain situations that I think maybe I didn't learn as much from when I was, but even when I think about each specific thing, I'm like, oh, actually, like that does affect my attitude or my mentality or like how I work with people today. Like when I was in college, I did telemarketing, which I hated so much. I would get on the phone for like 4 hours straight and call people and read a script. But I honestly feel like putting myself in a situation that I hated and forcing myself to do it, and kind of like, I made good money doing it. So I needed to do that to buy food in college. And I feel like that experience, even though it totally sucked and my boss was awful, like there's still good things that I took away from it. And I think every single little thing that I did has shaped, what we're doing here and what my mentality is. So there's certainly things that I regret. There's certainly things that like I were painful. But I think all of it is important in context, and looking back and kind of thinking about things that I would have done differently is great. But it really just causes me to do them differently in the future. So at my last agency, we had a client. It was very painful for us because we all four of us flew out to their company. We did like an annual review of the business. Everything was really great. The review went great. We had great feedback from them. And then we flew back that night, and literally the next day we got an email from them that they were not going to be working with us anymore. And I was so annoyed that they didn't just say it to our face in person. And so the way that we kind of transitioned things with them was just very like cold. We didn't give them a lot of the things that they asked for. We weren't open. And I really drove a lot of that. It was my fault. I was like, that's just unprofessional. It's disrespectful. Like, we don't need to just give them everything that we've worked so hard on for the last 3 years. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. Like that, and that's not what we do today at LT Partners. If a client decides that they want to go a different direction, we help them with taking things in a different direction. So I can look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that differently. But had I done things differently that back then, I might make that mistake now with our current clients. And I'm glad that I messed up back then and I've learned from it today.
Mm. I also saw something similar where someone asked that, is there anything that you would like to change about your life? And the person said that no, I wouldn't, because I learned a lot from all of those mistakes. So,
Yeah.
and so I think this was more of a teacher-student conversation. And so the student said that no, not really. I learned a lot. And the teacher said that good, because you can't change those things.
Yeah. There's no point in regretting it, right?
Yeah. All right. We will take one final question. Uh, so Jay again says, how important is the dream vision when you are starting out, and do we need to plan everything out?
No, not at all. Like, so first off, I would say the vision and the dream is crucial. Like, you have to have something that you stand for. You have to have, your North Star that you can always say, like, this is what I believe in, and that cannot change no matter what. That's what I believe anyway. I think that, I will never change that belief and that vision. Uh, Hopefully that's the right thing. And you certainly don't need to plan everything out. When I started the company, I thought, maybe I'm just going to consult, but this is the approach that I'm going to have. It's going to be more consultative. I'm going to be a strategic partner for my clients. And I didn't know if it would resonate. I didn't know if people would find me. I didn't know how I would find people. There were a lot of unanswered things. And I didn't have like client work to do in the beginning. So I sat down and I built out all these processes and I built out a bunch of like documents because I was at another agency that grew very quickly and they didn't have sort of this infrastructure. So I said, I'm just going to take this time to build out this infrastructure so that if we grow, I'm ready for it. And I put the right like technology tools in place and all of that good stuff. And I knew what I needed to add as we grew. But then after 4 months of growing really, really quickly, I started working with a coach because I had to like check in with myself on what I wanted and whether, I could have decided at the time I just want to keep the company small. I could just consult. It could just be me. And that would give me a lot of flexibility with my personal life. I could turn clients down that I didn't want to work with. I could kind of work from anywhere if I wanted. And I knew that growing the company and doing it as quickly as we have was going to come with some pain points. And so I really just needed to understand, like, how much did I want to sacrifice to make that happen? And did I want to go that path? And it didn't take me a long time. I think I just wanted to make sure that I was super confident in my vision, and where I wanted to take things, and what I knew I was going to have to give up to do that. I wanted to go into it with like a very clear understanding, and also for my family to have that same understanding of what it was going to mean for our lives. But I certainly did not have everything planned out. I just had seen it happen before, and I had like a high level idea of what it was going to mean from the conversations with that coach. But having every detail, I mean, if you try to do it, I'm certain all of those details will change anyway. So it's just kind of a
Yeah.
waste of time.
Mhm. All right. So that was the last question. I think I think it went well for all of you. The goal really was to make sure that you have someone to ask your doubts to, um, and just get a different perspective from the folks that we listen to here in India. So again, as I said, I hope this helped you. And Lacie, really thank you for joining in. Just giving a bit of context, everyone's in Seattle right now, and when we started, it was 5:30 a.m. So really thank you for joining in, and I'll share the deck with every one of you. in the WhatsApp group that we created for the event, and I'll also share the GDSC links if you want to join in for more events. I think this can probably be the last event we have for this academic year, but if we have any more, then maybe you can join in. All right, so that was pretty much it. Thank you, Lacie, for joining in. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah, so there'll be some appreciation text in the chat. So
Awesome. It's been great speaking with you guys. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and stay in touch, and feel free to shoot me over any questions that you guys have.
for sure. All right, thank you everyone for joining in, and thanks Lacie one last time. And
Okay.
yeah,
Have a great day, you
bye
guys.
folks.
Bye.
Bye.